In this video, I will give you 11 tips for the business, environment, and concepts part of the CPA exam that will help you beat this beast of exam. So, keep watching. Hey future CPAs, this is Ala Abudaya. I'm a licensed CPA in the state of Colorado, and I help students pass the CPA exam and become CPAs. If this is your first time here and you're interested in becoming CPAs, start by subscribing to our channel and clicking the bell in order not to miss any of my videos. Many CPA candidates consider BEC to be the easiest section of the CPA exam. However, in reality, BEC is as hard as the other parts of the exam and still requires a serious study effort. One unique aspect of the BEC exam is that it requires candidates to prepare and submit 3 written communication responses, which are not required in the other 3 sections of the exam. Here are 11 tips to help you study and pass this part on your first try, and make sure to stay till the end of the video to hear the last 3 tips which will help you master the written communication questions. Also, make sure to get your free BEC exam guide after watching this video by clicking the link in the description below, which will help you pass this exam. So make sure to get this guide. Tip number 1. Study one topic at a time. The BEC test is not just an accounting test because it includes concepts that you will use as a business manager. The best way to prepare for the BEC exam is to study one topic at a time on a consistent basis, rather than rushing the material together during the last few days before the exam. Invest the time required to learn BEC concepts, which are essential for your business career, and concentrate on understanding each topic one at a time. Don't underestimate the BEC exam. Make sure you study consistently and give it sufficient time to study before your actual test date. Tip number 2. Study the IT area, which was updated in the blueprints of July 2019. The new IT updates are eligible for testing starting July 1, 2019. These updates did not change the content tested under IT, but mainly rearranged this content. It is now structured to focus on IT fundamentals, risks of IT, and controls that respond to the risks of IT. So when it comes to IT fundamentals, you must be able to define the basics of hardware, software, databases, networks, and identify the role of information systems in key business processes. Also, understand the key characteristics of a relational database and recognize the role of big data in supporting business decisions. You must be also able to use business intelligence to support business decisions. Concerning the risks of IT, you must be able to identify IT-related risks and describe mitigation strategies for them, and to identify system access and segregation of duties risks. Also, you must determine the risks associated with integrity in input, storage, processing, and output processes. Make sure to identify the risks associated with protecting sensitive and critical information. When it comes to controls that respond to the risks of IT, you must understand the controls and testing strategies used in selecting, developing, and implementing new information systems, and identify effective IT control activities. Make sure to properly read the updated blueprints and fulfill the required representative tasks under these blueprints. You can get these blueprints from the AICPA.org website. Just search for these blueprints and you will find them. Watch this video, which I explained about the importance of the AICPA blueprints to help you succeed in your exams. So make sure to watch this video after this video. Tip number 3. Understand the direct costs versus indirect costs. I'm sure you took cost accounting in the university, but maybe you don't remember the material. Comment below and tell me whether you remember your cost accounting material or not. For me personally, when I studied for the BEC exam, I did not remember anything from my cost accounting course I took in the university. Don't worry, even if you don't remember cost accounting, I will give you a summary to refresh your memory. When you add up the costs incurred to produce a product or a service, you'll incur direct and indirect costs. If you manufacture plastic bags, for example, you'll incur direct material costs for plastic. Additionally, you'll post direct labor costs for workers that operate your machines. These economic concepts are traced to the product because you can determine the exact amount of material used and the direct hours incurred. Now, indirect costs, or what we call overhead costs, cannot be directly traced to the product. Repair and maintenance costs for machines, for example, cannot be traced to each plastic bag. Therefore, indirect costs are allocated to products using an activity level such as labor hour worked or machine hours incurred. My tip here is, when you see cost accounting questions on the BEC section of the exam, remember, direct costs are traced to products and indirect costs are allocated to products. Tip number 4. Understand variance analysis. Favorable and unfavorable variances can be confusing concepts. Comment below and tell me whether these concepts confuse you. So, what is a variance? A variance is defined as the difference between a budgeted amount and an actual amount. You may see the term standard, budgeted, or planned, and all three terms mean the same thing. Before you answer a variance question, note whether the question is asking about costs or revenues. Here is the difference between the favorable and unfavorable costs under the cost variance and the revenue variance. A favorable cost variance means that actual costs are lower than the budgeted costs. And an actual unfavorable variance occurs when actual costs are higher than the planned costs. However, a favorable revenue variance means that actual revenue is higher than budgeted revenue. And an unfavorable variance occurs when actual revenue is lower than the planned revenue. Tip number 5. Memorize the financial ratios and understand the meaning behind them. The BEC exam includes many financial ratios, so make sure to memorize these ratios and understand what they mean and what changes when you adjust something within these ratios. Understand liquidity versus solvency. Liquidity measures a firm's ability to produce enough current assets to pay current liabilities. When you hear liquidity, think about a company's checkbook. Here are two calculations used to assess liquidity. The first calculation is working capital, which is defined as the current assets minus current liabilities, and it should always be positive to be in favor for the business. The second calculation is the current ratio, which is current assets divided by current liabilities. Every firm should keep a current ratio at least 1 or higher. Now, both calculations tell the owner if the company has enough current assets to pay current liabilities. The term solvency, however, is different. This is because it refers to a company's ability to generate enough sales and profits to purchase expensive assets and pay down debt over the long term. Financially, health businesses must address both liquidity and solvency. Also, when it comes to financial ratios, I recommend you learn the receivable turnover and inventory turnover. And here's my tip for these ratios. To compute any turnover ratio, take the name and turn it over by making it the denominator. So, for example, to compute the inventory turnover, take the inventory and make it the denominator input. cost of goods sold as the numerator. Another ratio that may seem confusing is times interest earned. The logic here is that a creditor wants to know if you can generate sufficient earnings to make interest payments on debt. And this ratio quantifies the answer. Times interest earned ratio equals the earning before interest expense and taxes divided by interest expense on debt. A business is obligated to pay interest and taxes, so the ratio considers earning before those expenses are paid. The higher the ratio, the more you have in your earnings to make interest payments. A 4-to-1 ratio is better than 2-to-1 ratio because you generate more than enough in earnings to pay the interest expense. The financial ratios are also covered in detail in the FAR section of the CPA exam. That's why I recommend you take the BEC after studying FAR in order to be better prepared and better understand the concepts. To learn the FAR exam tips and tricks, make sure to watch this video, which I gave you tips for this exam. Tip number 6. Practice examples on foreign currency risks. This is one of the most difficult topics in the BEC exam. Currency risk is the risk of loss when a company exchanges one currency for another. Many exam candidates skip the foreign currency questions, but a simple example can help you understand this concept. For me personally, I did not like this topic at all and found it to be difficult. But when I used to practice examples, I used to realize that it is not as hard as I thought. Comment below and tell me whether this happens to you also when you are studying. Here is my tips when it comes to foreign currencies. The BEC test asks students about a particular currency getting stronger or weaker when compared with a second currency. Assume, for example, that XYZ company needs to add capital to a company division in Europe. XYZ must convert US dollars into euros at the current exchange rate of $1 to 0.8 euros. If XYZ moves $1 million to Europe, the dollar will be exchanged into 800,000 euros. Here's an example of the currency getting stronger or weaker. If the dollar strengthens against the euro will buy fewer dollars when a currency exchange is made. Say, for example, that the new exchange rate is $1 to 0.85 euros. The $1 million previously converted to 800,000 euros now result in 850,000 euros. The dollar is stronger than the euro. However, if the dollar weakens against the euro will buy more dollars when a currency exchange is made. Say, for example, that a new exchange rate is $1 to 0.7 euros. The $1 million previously converted into 850 euros now results in 700,000 euros. The dollar is weaker versus the euros. If you practice some questions on this topic and understand the logic behind the answers, you will absolutely understand foreign currencies. Tip number 7. Study internal control frameworks and segregation of duties. The COSO internal control framework and segregation of duties are frequently tested on the BEC exam, and every accountant must understand these topics. Segregation of duties reduces the risk of fraud, particularly fraud committed by workers within a business. The CPA exam asks many questions in the COSO internal control framework and segregation of duties. So make sure that you're clear about these topics. These topics are also covered in more detail in the audit section of the CPA exam. That's why I also recommend you take the BEC after studying and taking the audit section of the CPA exam in order to better understand the internal control concepts and the fraud concepts as well. To learn more about the audit exam tips and tricks, watch this video which I explain these tips. Tip number 8. Study production department versus service departments. Not every department in a business exists to produce a product. Some departments, such as legal and accounting, exist to service other departments that are directly involved in producing a product. Keep in mind that the costs of all departments must be allocated to a product. So service department costs are allocated to production departments based on an activity level. If the production department incurs 5% of the legal department's time, for example, 5% of the legal costs are allocated to production. The production department will incur legal, accounting, and other service costs, and these costs are allocated directly to products. So this allocation process ensures that every cost is captured and assigned to a product or service. I know there is a lot of material to study, which makes it hard to remember everything you are studying. Don't worry, I covered you in these 2 videos, which I explained some tips to help you study smarter and tips to improve your learning memory. So make sure to watch these 2 videos after this video. Tip number 9, plan your time limits. You have only 4 hours for the BEC exam. So to make the most of it, you should follow a time management strategy in order to be able to complete all the exam. Since the written communications are at the end of the exam, you want to leave plenty of time to finish them. So you must complete testlets 1 to 4 within less than 3 hours in order to leave plenty of time for the last testlet that includes the 3 written communications. Don't underestimate the importance of time management, because you will get out of time if you don't have a proper time management strategy for the exam. Make sure to watch this video, which I give you some time management strategies for the CPA exam. Tip number 10, practice multiple choice questions, task-based simulations, and written communications. If you want to get better in written communications and task-based simulations, you need to practice more questions. They'll help you prepare yourself for business-related questions and apply business concepts to certain situations. They'll also help you get more comfortable when finishing multiple choice questions and task-based simulations and going right into the written communication tasks. Expect to receive task-based simulations on budgeting and analysis, forecasting and projections, strategies for managing working capital, and market influences on business. So make sure to practice task-based simulations on these topics. Tip number 11, practice your writing skills. Since 15% of your score is directly related to the written communication tasks, you need to be able to write well. This means correct spelling, grammar, punctuation, as well as the ability to set a business tone and communicate at the point. Spend some time on written communication tasks and have someone look through them and give you feedback. Here is my tip. Use accounting terms relevant to the topics in order to increase your written communication scores. And here's your gift for today. Get your free BEC CPA exam guide linked in the description below, which includes my tips and tricks to help you pass this part of the exam. So click the link below and make sure to get this guide. It is totally free. Watch this video to learn how to beat the RIG part of the exam, and this video to learn the eligibility requirements to sit for the CPA exam. Remember, go after what you want, pass the CPA exam, because you can become CPAs and save the world.